Bricc Baby spent 20 years robbing rappers who came to Los Angeles. Chains off necks, Rolexes off wrists, cars taken in broad daylight. So many that touring artists started calling ahead before they landed just to make sure they were clear with them. And he never hid a second of it. He sat on podcast after podcast telling the stories himself, on camera.
Cool, on the dead homies. I done had every nigga jury, nigga. On the dead homies, nigga. If I want blood, I can get blood.
Rappers have been killed for far less than what he took. So how do you rob half of rap, name the people you did it to, and live long enough to tell the story? To answer that, we gotta go back to Crenshaw, because Bricc Baby didn't invent the rule that made rap afraid of Los Angeles. The city handed it to him. He was born Zaire Mitchell, raised off Crenshaw, and by his teens, he was under the Rolling 60s, the biggest Crip set in Los Angeles and one the feds have spent decades trying to break apart.
I end up getting put on 60.
Okay, you're 14.
Yeah, but I always was affiliated.
That backing is the reason the robberies work. Anybody else takes a chain off a famous rapper and spends the next year looking over his shoulder. Bricc did it for 20 years and never had to. And he never had to because he knew something every rapper who came to LA didn't. Who you could talk to, where you could stand, and what happened to people who came through without asking. And underneath those, the one rule that would eventually make him money. Moving safely through a neighborhood is something a man grants you. Somebody has to put their name on you. And the man who can put his name on you can take it off. Every kid on those blocks learned that rule. Two of them built completely different lives out of it. One of them was Nipsey Hussle, who came out of the same set and built one of the most respected careers in the city's history.
When did you realize that Nipsey was like, yo, he's gonna be that guy?
Back then, this is how he carried himself. He always carried himself that way.
Bricc has pointed to that shared geography in interviews, and the comparison is worth holding on to because both men were working with the same raw material, same blocks, same affiliations, same access to the same rooms. One of them turned it into real estate, ownership, and a Grammy. The other turned it into a reputation people were afraid of. His family history was already tangled in the life. In a 2015 profile in LA Weekly, he described his mother serving 4 years in prison for dealing cocaine. That detail matters more than most because he would eventually turn it into the title of his own album. By his own account, the street life started early and never really had a competing option. In a 2016 interview with Vice, when he was asked what he came from before music, he answered in 3 words: nothing, robbing. That's his own description of his baseline. And it's the thing that separates his story from most rappers who perform a criminal past. He was telling people what he did while he was still doing it. The thing that expanded his reach beyond Los Angeles was Atlanta. By his telling, he started going out there around 2003 while he was still in the streets at home. Atlanta in that era was the center of gravity for the whole culture. And it was also the home of the Black Mafia family, the drug organization run by Demetrius Big Meech Flannery that had wrapped itself around the city's rap scene.
Okay, so you're staying in Atlanta and you meet Big Meech and BMF.
Yeah.
Bricc has said in multiple interviews that he moved through that orbit and came up around figures tied to it, including Blue Da Vinci and Pee Wee Longway. He has claimed he and Longway started the MPA collective together. He has also said he was accepted to Clark Atlanta University, which in his own telling was the moment he had a clean exit available to him.
I've been pissing dirty from 14 to 18. I never pissed one clean. So I end up getting violated. And while I'm there, I get an acceptance letter from Clark Atlanta University.
He didn't take it. Whatever the exact details, the version he tells is a man who had a door out and chose the other one. None of that Atlanta material is documented in a court file. It comes from him, told on camera years later. But it's the foundation of the reputation he built because Atlanta is where the robbery stories start. The most famous one he tells himself. In interviews with Vlad TV, Bricc is described trying to rob Jeezy for a snowman chain during BET weekend, a piece of jewelry that was one of the most recognizable in rap at the time.
We trying to ease our way to Jeezy. We see the snowman. We trying to go do our thing. And I guess we was the only ones thinking we was being sneaky.
There's no police report or contemporary reporting that confirms that specific incident. What it confirms is what he wanted people to believe about him and what he was willing to say into a camera. The violence came back around on him. He is described being shot twice, and the second one nearly ended it. By his account, a bullet went through his shoulder and exited through his neck, breaking his jaw and leaving him temporarily paralyzed.
You mentioned you've been shot a few times.
Yeah.
What do you think was like the worst one?
The
that you
neck
got
shot. When I got shot in my neck.
You got shot in the neck.
Yeah.
He has told that story publicly more than once, and the physical toll of it is one of the few parts of his early life that he has never softened. So by the end of the 2000s, you have a young man from one of the most powerful sets in Los Angeles, with a working network in Atlanta, a reputation built on taking things from people, and 2 bullet wounds to prove the life was real. To understand why that reputation translated into real fear, you have to understand what Los Angeles actually was for visiting artists. Every major rap city has its politics. LA had a system.
I would say, like, when you come to Los Angeles, you just gotta be real careful. You have to know where you're at, who you're with, and even then, you still can get it. Look at Biggie.
Federal prosecutors would later describe it in detail in court filings, and the term they used for it is the same one the streets used: checking in. The idea is simple, and it's older than any of the people in this story. If you're an artist coming into the city, you reach out to somebody with standing. You let them know you're there. Sometimes you pay. In exchange, you get to move around, do your show, shoot your video, and leave with everything you arrived with. If you skip that step, you're unprotected. And Los Angeles is a small city when it comes to that. There are maybe a dozen hotels visiting artists actually stay in, a handful of clubs they actually go to. The video shoots happen in the same neighborhoods every time. An out-of-town rapper wearing $400,000 around his neck is not hard to find, and everybody who might want to find him already knows where to look.
And you know, when you come out here, you just gotta make sure your street game is on lock. And you gotta make sure all the people that you talked about on those records, you better hope that they don't know that you're in town.
That's why the rule had teeth. It wasn't a suggestion about manners. It was the difference between leaving with your jewelry and leaving without it. According to the criminal complaint filed by the FBI in March of 2025, that system had been turned into a business. Prosecutors alleged that a Rollin 60s figure named Eugene Henley, known everywhere as Big U, ran what they called a mafia-like enterprise that monetized access to Los Angeles. And Big U is the piece that makes the whole thing make sense. For years, his public identity was the opposite of a gang boss. He was known as a gang interventionist, a community figure who worked to reduce violence in South LA, and he managed Nipsey Hussle early in Nipsey's career. He appeared in documentaries. He spoke at events. He was, publicly, one of the people trying to fix the neighborhood. Prosecutors allege that underneath that, he was running a criminal organization that taxed the city. The complaint describes out-of-town artists, athletes, and other visitors paying for permission and protection. It cites an incident where the enterprise allegedly collected $100,000 to negotiate a celebrity gambling dispute. It describes a retainer arrangement where people paid on an ongoing basis to avoid being targeted at all.
Me, myself, I check in. And in certain places, I'm going to tell a dude if they check in with me, now I don't think you should go there now.
Yeah.
I mean, he might want to go to the other one.
And the most damning line in the government's description is the mechanism itself. Prosecutors allege the operation given the very danger it was charging people to avoid. Pay and nothing happens to you. Don't pay and something does. That is the machine Bricc Baby's reputation lived inside. Whether he ran a crew watching arrivals at the airport, the way the legend has always claimed, has never been documented in any public filing. What the record does establish is that he was known in that world, feared in it, and that his name would eventually appear in federal paperwork about robbery money. Then in 2012, everything paused. That year, he went to jail, and by the account he gave LA Weekly, he served 8 months. When he came home, he told the paper, he decided to start making money legally and put everything into rap. In later interviews, he's described that same period differently, with a longer sentence and a different case attached to it, which is a pattern worth noting. His own timeline shifts depending on which era of interview you're watching. The mixtapes that followed were called Nasty Dealer and Nasty Dealer 2, and the titles tell you he wasn't attempting a clean image. He was converting the reputation directly into product. In 2014, he released the project that defined him, and he named it Son of a Brick Lady, a reference to his mother's cocaine case and the 4 years she served.
Let me think about it. I'm the son of a brick lady. My mama was like the dope queen. She was the real trap queen. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, I named my tape Son of a Brick Lady.
He pulled real features onto it, including Young Thug, Casey Veggies, and Young Scooter, which meant the industry was taking him seriously as an artist and not just as a name people were scared of. Around the same time, he was running with Kid Ink, who he had known since they were young, under the Bat Gang banner, touring the United States and Europe. The music itself told on him too. He put out a record called Trap Out the Uber, and the title alone shows where his head was. He wasn't writing around the life. He was packaging its logistics as content, turning method into a hook. And that's the honest read on his catalog. There's no platinum plaque here, no major label deal, no catalog sale, no master's dispute. What the music actually did was convert fear into visibility. The features he pulled were real, the touring was real, but the product being sold underneath all of it was the reputation. The songs were proof of access, not the business itself. He was also positioning himself as a connector. In interviews, he's claimed he was the one who introduced Young Thug to Nipsey Hussle around 2009, back when Thug's sound was new enough that most people didn't know what to do with it.
I introduced Young Thug to Nipsey in 09, I want to say, 2009. I want to say that was BET weekend too. That was Thug's first trip down here.
That's his account, unverified, but it's the role he's always claimed for himself. The man who knew everybody in both cities on both sides. For a stretch there was a version of this story where he became a rapper and that was the end of it. That's not what happened, because he never stopped talking about the other life. In May of 2015, LA Weekly profiled him as a South LA rapper with Atlanta connections and 2 mixtapes trying to build a career. Then, in July of 2016, Vice published an interview where he laid out both halves at once. He talked about Brick City Records, the label he was pushing. He talked about being associated with Kid Ink, Young Thug, and Pee Wee Longway. He talked about touring with Chris Brown, and in the same conversation, he described his past as nothing. Robbing. The industry version and the street version sold in the same breath to a national publication. A month before that piece ran, the code itself went mainstream. On June 17, 2016, YG released a song called Don't Come to LA, and the feature list included Bricc Baby alongside AD and Sad Boy.
The original features for the Don't Come to LA song, it was me, YG, and Nip on the song. And when he got back in commission, Nip takes a long time to do his verses. And I think the album was due to get turned in, and YG had to turn his album in, so he put AD on the song from Compton, man.
The whole message of that record is the rule stated plainly. Stay out of this city if your politics aren't handled. An unwritten law that visiting artists had whispered about for years was now a track on a major album, with Bricc Baby's voice on it. 15 months later, the reputation collided with the LAPD. On September 21st, 2017, police began pursuing a suspect in an armed robbery investigation. The chase started around 1:25 in the afternoon, moving through the west side of the city from the area of Mindanao Way and Lincoln Boulevard toward Panay Way in Marina del Rey. It ended when the vehicle ran out of road and the suspect ran into an apartment building and barricaded himself inside. What followed shut down a stretch of Marina del Rey for the rest of the day. Police surrounded the building. A helicopter circled overhead. Local news carried it live. The suspect stayed inside for close to 6 hours and finally surrendered at approximately 7:15 that evening. Local reporting identified the man as Bricc Baby.
A local rapper arrested after a tense standoff with officers in Marina del Rey, but his family says police got the wrong guy.
That case took him off the street for years. In an interview with No Jumper in August of 2021, he described having just come home after 4 years in LA County Jail. And what he did with that freedom is the thing that defines the second half of his story. He went straight back on camera. No Jumper, run by Adam22, had become one of the biggest platforms in rap media, built largely on getting people to say things on the record that they probably shouldn't. Bricc became one of its most reliable voices. He sat for interview after interview on that show and on Vlad TV and everywhere else, describing the robberies, the politics, who could come to Los Angeles and who couldn't, and what happened to the people who got it wrong. He had spent 4 years locked up on an armed robbery investigation, and he came home and made his reputation the product. Every story built the brand. Every story also went into a searchable, permanent, time-stamped archive. That archive started causing him problems. When federal prosecutors charged Lil Durk in a murder-for-hire case, the indictment referenced unnamed co-conspirators, and the internet went looking for names to attach to them. Brick's name started circulating, and he had to go public to address rumors that he was the person described in the filings as co-conspirator 4. He denied it.
This is the biggest fight of their life. Like, I don't have not a doubt in my mind if I'm going to jail or not. I ain't going to jail on this case. You're not gonna ever see my name. You're not gonna see anything.
Nothing in the public record ties him to that case, but the episode showed exactly what he had built. He had spent so many years positioning himself as the man who knew what happened in every room that when a federal indictment mentioned an unnamed participant, a portion of the internet simply assumed it was him. That's the cost of the persona. Once you tell people you're in everything, they believe you when it's something you had nothing to do with. But weeks before that 2021 interview, his name had already entered a federal file, and he had no idea.
2 days before it happened, we just randomly ran into each other at the mall, just completely randomly. You could tell he had no idea what was about to happen.
On July 5th, 2021, according to the FBI affidavit filed years later, a robbery and extortion scheme produced a dispute over how the money was split. In a recorded conversation captured by investigators, one participant complained about the size of the take, saying Bricc Baby had said it was supposed to be between 5 to 7 racks.
So basically, just talking about how they're gonna split the money up, man. So on a subsequent call, it was supposed to be between 5 and 7, man. Gotta make that call out to Bricc, man.
That single line matters more than any interview he ever gave, because it's the first time his name shows up inside actual robbery paperwork instead of a story he was telling about himself. Not proof he ran the operation, proof his name was in the room when robbery money was being counted. And by then, agents were already building the larger case. Buried in that March 2025 complaint was a detail about Bricc Baby that changes how every one of his interviews reads in hindsight. Investigators had obtained Title III intercepts on his phones. That's a federal wiretap, the kind that requires a judge's authorization and a showing that ordinary investigative methods won't work. While he was going on podcasts describing the mechanics of robbing people in Los Angeles, the government was listening to his calls. The complaint also noted something else. There was already a separate, sealed indictment against him. That indictment had been filed on February 26, 2025, under his legal name, Zahir Mitchell. It charged him with being a felon in possession of a firearm and ammunition, tied to offense dates in July of 2022 and June of 2023.
They basically say, yo, the indictment first alleges the defendant shooting at individuals, possessing ammunition, and expelled from a firearm, ammunition expelled from a firearm in 2022. Then on 2023, he was captured on an intercepted call arguing with his significant other, in which she repeatedly recounted that the defendant had pointed a gun at her while she was holding her infant child.
Sealed meant invisible. For weeks, the case existed without the public knowing it was there. On March 19, 2025, it stopped being invisible. Federal agents arrested Mitchell along with 10 other alleged Rollin 60s affiliates in a coordinated operation the government called Operation Drawdown. Big U was named as a founding member of the set and was initially considered a fugitive. The acting United States attorney announced the takedown publicly and described the charges as targeting the leadership of a criminal outfit.
Federal agents say Eugene Henley led what they're calling the Big U Enterprise, a criminal organization tied to the Rollin 60s Crips street gang.
The man who had built an entire media career narrating Los Angeles street politics was now a defendant in the biggest Los Angeles street case in years. And the resolution came faster than most people expected. Mitchell pleaded guilty to a federal firearms count. As part of it, he agreed to forfeit 3 firearms and ammunition. Then came the part that puts the whole story in perspective. When probation officials calculated his sentencing exposure, they placed him in criminal history category 6. That is the highest criminal history category that exists under federal sentencing guidelines, reserved for defendants with the most extensive records. Combined with an offense level of 23, it produced an advisory range of 92 to 115 months in prison. Prosecutors asked for 92 months, the bottom of that range, arguing that even the low end reflected the seriousness of the conduct and what they described as his lengthy history of convictions. Sentencing was initially set for December 19, 2025. The case continued to move into 2026, with the docket showing continuance activity rather than a clean finish. He isn't the only one. Big U's case has been pushed back and is not expected to reach trial until 2027. Pee Wee Longway, the Atlanta rapper Bricc tied himself to for 2 decades, was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison in July of 2026 in a separate matter.
From what I'm hearing, and it's ringing like a bell, man, Pee Wee Longway, it done took 10 years, man, on that. When they did catch him, he had a bunch of artillery on him, and now he's done come up with 10 years.
Almost everyone in the network Bricc spent his career describing is now inside the system in one form or another. So where does that leave the legend? Here's what the paperwork actually proves. It proves a man from the rolling 60s with a criminal record heavy enough to land him in the highest category federal sentencing has. It proves a 6-hour armed standoff in Marina Del Rey in 2017. It proves his name surfaced in a federal robbery proceeds dispute in 2021. It proves the government wiretapped his phones. It proves he was arrested inside a sweeping racketeering takedown, pleaded guilty to a gun charge, and is facing years in federal prison.
So I guess Bricc Baby took a deal.
He did?
That's what they're saying, that he took a deal and he was looking at 4 to 5 years, but then they rescinded some guidelines because of his history, and then they're saying the lawyer might have messed up and now he could be facing like 10 years.
What it does not prove is the biggest story of all. There is no public federal filing that documents a crew watching arrivals at LAX. No charging document laying out the airport hierarchy that made him famous in rap circles. That version of him exists almost entirely in interviews, most of them his own.